How would you like to buy a property and the government pay for the refurb? And you can do this perfectly legally through an approved government scheme. My name is Russell Leeds.
And I'm Anna Leeds.
And welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. Now, this is quite an exciting...
yes, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we all love BRR.
And we all love free things.
And we all love free things. But this is kind of a combination of the two. So I'm actually going to take you through a case study of when this happened, all right? So this here, I'm showing you on the screen. You guys won't be able to see it at home. But this here is a property that was bought in the northeast of England for £140,000. Now, when this property was bought, it had an EPC rating of an F.
Wow, that is bad.
It's a pretty poor EPC. Why don't we quickly actually explain to anyone that doesn't know what an EPC is and how they rank it. So an EPC stands for Energy Performance Certificate. And then basically they rate the property, so a surveyor will come out and have a look at your property and find out how energy efficient it is. A would be the absolute best.
Yeah.
Property's super efficient. And then it just gets progressively worse. You've got B, C, D, E, F, which this property is. And then you have G, which is the absolute worst. You know, this is like, we're talking... Do you remember the property we lived in Clark Hayes Farm?
I feel like that was probably beyond a G.
Oh, I'd love to look that up, actually.
I think it was an E.
Was
actually.
It only an E?
Yeah, but that surprises me because there was actually a hole in the wall, wasn't there, that like you could see outside. And
You'd be in your room at night. It's a listed building, an old farmhouse, right? You'd be in your room and you could feel the wind blowing through. The windows are closed.
Yeah.
Blowing through the walls. But you could see outside. There's places where you could see outside.
You could. But you weren't allowed to do anything because it was listed. So you had to leave it as it was. But it was a nightmare, wasn't it?
I've got a feeling it was an F.
It might have been.
Same as this. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
But they're going to struggle with that, aren't they, to rent it? It's still not rented since we lived in it, like 4 or 5 years on.
Well, the rules actually state that legally, right now, it's about to change, actually, which we'll talk about in a minute. But right now, it has to be an E or better in order for you to rent it out.
Yeah.
So an F, a G, or no EPC, you wouldn't be able to rent it out. However, you can apply for a license to rent it out, even if it is F. And this would actually, the property would work.
Because it's a listed building.
Yeah, so say, look, it's a listed building. We can't make the changes that you want, so we're gonna rent it out as an F.
Okay.
So they actually would get away with it. But normally, you're right, E or above.
Yes.
Has to be that to rent it out as a buy-to-let.
And then the rules are changing, aren't they?
Yeah, so basically what the government have said is, come 2028...
Yeah.
It's funny because this has been going back and forth. It's not like the government to change their mind on a regular basis, is it? It's not like
No.
a normal thing. So the Tories originally said this, and they said from, I think it was 2030, from 2030, all buy-to-let properties would have to be C rated or above, which is actually pretty energy efficient.
Yeah, because overall, the houses I look at, normally all are below that.
Yeah, they're normally a D, aren't they? D seems to be the most common.
Yeah.
Loads of Ds. You might get the odd E, F.
Yeah.
G. But yeah, I agree, a lot of Ds. So everything's got to be C or above if it's a buy-to-let property.
Yeah.
So this is not if you just your personal home or whatever, it doesn't have to be. But then when they looked into it, they were like, actually, it's going to cost about 10 grand per buy-to-let property to make it, to get it up to a C or above. That's not really very fair on all the landlords. All the landlords were kicking off about it. This is terrible. In fact, a lot of landlords sold up over it.
Yeah, which is mad.
Which is why I don't think you should... When they say, this is coming in, let's just wait and see. Okay, so the big hoo-ha, and then they were like, actually, we're not going to do it. And then Labour got in and said, actually, we are going to do it. So it's like, we are again. So we are now doing it. I believe it's 2028, you've got to be C rated or above. At the moment, it all
who
remains
knows?
to be seen. Or 2030 if it's an existing property. So if you've got an existing property, it's already in a tenancy, you've got till 2030 to get it to a C or above. And this is going to cost now, they're like, actually, it isn't £10,000. Actually, it's £15,000.
Yep.
So we're getting all the landlords kicking off, this is terrible, this is awful, terrible news, it's going to cost us a fortune. And to be fair, they've got a point.
Yeah. If you had like 50 properties that you had to do the work on every single one just to continue renting them out.
Well, buy-to-let...
That would be an absolute nightmare, wouldn't it?
And buy-to-let is dead anyway. It's not making any money. It's not like, these landlords are, cashing it in and making 15 grand a year. Buy-to-let is practically, if you're breaking even, you're doing okay right now, right? So with the interest rates have gone up and whatnot. So, yeah, it's not a brilliant thing for buy-to-let landlords. However, while they're all moaning and kicking off, what they're not aware of is some of the government schemes that are around in the background, which this property took advantage of. All right, so here's the property, 140 grand property in the northeast of England, F rating. That's what an EPC is. So what they did was they improved the EPC rating of the property. So it's currently an F. And how did they do that? Well, they added an air source heat pump, which is kind of like air conditioning, but in reverse. So you know how air conditioning, I mean, we've got an air conditioning unit in our room and it gets really hot. And what it does, it sucks all the air in.
Yeah.
It blows the cold air back into the room and it blows the hot air out the window.
Yes.
So an air source heat pump's like the exact opposite. So it sucks the air in from the atmosphere or around the property. It sucks all the air in, blows the hot air into the house and blows the cold air out.
You do know we've got one of those, right? Here.
Oh, do we really?
Yeah, up in the...
An air source heat pump?
Yeah.
No, we don't. We used to have one at our old property.
No, we have.
We've got a different system. I know what you're talking about. It's actually broken though.
Yeah, I know. But isn't it that?
No.
But just broken.
No, it's similar though. It's a similar. These are all outside. That's
okay,
like an interior system. So they added air source heat pump anyway. They also added solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
Very energy efficient.
Very.
It's free energy. They added some heating
They're just
controls.
ugly though, aren't they?
Do you not like solar panels?
No, I'm really against solar panels.
Really against them?
Yeah, my dad had some put in and I think they're really ridiculous.
Really ridiculous.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely ugly as. And
They are ugly.
Like, he gets all excited when he saves 50p a month, but I'm like, but it costs you 20 grand to put them in. Like, but you're all excited that you saved your £1 this month. I just think, now in this case, obviously, we're going to go on to share.
Well, it's good, but you're not a big fan.
No,
You wouldn't pay to get them yourself.
I certainly would not, no.
What about if they were hidden somewhere, like at the back of the house where you couldn't see?
No, I just
I had this
don't
debate
like
with
them.
someone the other day. What about if they didn't look like solar panels?
Yeah, if they probably didn't look like solar panels, I'd probably like them.
Do you know one of the things?
I'm a bit...
One of the things I quite like about it is I like the idea of being able to be self-sufficient. So do you know those houses that have got things like solar panels, so that, or a generator, obviously they need diesel, or they've got like taps that it drains the water from the house.
Yes, no.
So it appeals to me about being able to be off grid if you needed to.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I just think... Well, the thing is, I've seen some people do them, and they actually are really expensive to have fitted. It's not like a few £100. So for me, you're destroying the look of your house for a lot of money to save a few quid per month, and to me, that just doesn't make any kind of sense.
But what about helping the environment?
Oh yeah, there is that.
It's clean energy, isn't it? Yeah, Anna's like, no, I don't want to help the environment. I want a nice looking house. All right, heating controls. And also internal wall insulation. This is the big one on this property. So they insulated all the walls, the exterior walls, actually the interior walls, to make the property much more energy efficient.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. And that took this property from an F to, wait for it, a B.
Wow.
Okay, it's gone from an F to a B. Now, bear in mind, there is a refurb kind of, but there's no real refurb. This wasn't a property that was in desperate disrepair. It was okay. It looked all right.
Yeah.
It was just really, really energy inefficient. Now, the cool thing is, while landlords have been moaning, I don't want to spend 15 grand doing up my property to make it, a B rated or whatever. While they're moaning about that, it actually does add quite a lot of value to the property. Right. So they spent 35 grand on this property, putting all those things in, putting your solar panels in, adding the internal wall insulation, adding in the air source heat pump, etc. But once they'd finished, the new value of the property, that wasn't an F, was £190,000.
Oh, wow.
So they spent 35 grand,
good.
but they've added 50 grand in value.
Yeah.
Which if you're doing as a BRR, doesn't really work. It's not a particularly good deal. However, this is the cool part. The refurb of £35,000 actually cost them nothing. Why did it cost them nothing? Because the government paid for it for them through the eco scheme.
Yes.
So how do you qualify for the eco scheme? Well, you can do this on your own home, if you've got your own home, if you are on benefits. So you've got to be on some sort of benefits. You've got to be on, here, where have we got our benefits here? Here they are. So child tax credit, working tax credit, universal credit, pension guarantee, credit. Pension savings, credit. Income support,
No, that's not credit.
Just income support. Income-based job seekers allowance or income-related. So basically, you've got to be on one of these benefits. That's the first thing that you need. Second thing that you need, whoever's living in the property. Second thing that you need is you need the property to be an EFG or have no EPC. So you couldn't have like a C and go, I want to make it an A. It's got to be a pretty energy inefficient property. If you are on benefits and have got an energy efficient property, you can do it. But if you're buying it as a buy-to-let and you're not on benefits, let's say we wanted to do this, we're not on benefits. What you can do is you can put a tenant into the property who is on benefits, then apply for the scheme. We did this for a company called eliteenergy.co.uk, and they basically took care of everything for us, right? So what we did was we went to Elite Energy and we said, look, got this property, it's an E. What do we do? And they said, well, first of all, we need to put a tenant in. So we put a tenant in the property.
Yeah.
And then they said, right, we'll apply for the grant. They did everything. They applied for the grant. They did the works, literally everything, sorted it all out. We didn't do a thing. They sorted it. They got the money. They did the works. They added the value to our property.
It's quite simple actually, isn't it?
It's unbelievably simple. So I will put a link for Elite Energy below. Now they only do northern, I think it's Midlands and above.
Yeah, okay? It is. Yeah.
So they won't do houses in London, but you can find other companies just like them. There's just the one that I used.
So would you recommend then? What would you do if you were a current landlord that had a great? Let's take our Hensford property for example, and we rave that she's still there, 15 years on. Would you? But she's not on benefits. Would you start kicking tenants out to put in people on benefits to get this grant?
No, I don't think I would. I don't think I would do that. If I had, I mean, our Hensford property that you're talking about is a C, so it's actually okay.
Yeah.
So no, but what you're saying is, if you had a property that needed, I wouldn't do that because I think that the chances are they'd move out anyway. You've still got till 2030.
Yeah, but if it got to that point, say you have got like 15, 20 properties that all need doing, but you're all... Because a lot of landlords don't naturally put people in on
benefits.
On benefits.
They avoid
I forgot
benefits.
the word then. On benefits.
Credit.
Credit, yeah, that is what actually popped into my head. Credit
On universal credit.
On benefits. So they could be in a situation where they are going to have to kick people out to put people in with benefits to get the grant.
I wouldn't kick them out. What I'd do is I'd say to them, look, I'm going to have to pay for this refurb. I'd cost it up. I'd say, obviously, I'm going to have to pass that cost, some of it onto you. So I'd up the rent.
Oh, you'd up the rent.
And then they'd probably move out. And then I'd get a benefits tenant in. If they choose to stay in.
But then you kind of are kicking them out roundabout sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way. Well, no, because if they stay in and then you've up the rent then, so I'd
and
probably
then you
work
just
it out.
pay for
Let's
the
say,
works.
Yeah, if I sort of thought, okay, I'll up the rent and I'll factor it in, say, over 3 years. So let's say it was going to cost me 10 grand. I'd be like, what's 10 grand divided by 3 years?
Yeah.
Worth 3 grand a year. Well, how much is that a month? I'd up it by that,
Yeah.
for example. And if they want to stay and they're happy to contribute towards it, I'd have to work it out. It'd have to be a reasonable rent. But I probably would up the rent with my way of trying to get them out nicely. And if they chose to stay and pay the rent, then I'd think, okay, it might be that I split with them 50-50, for example.
Okay. And how much is the government grant for people who don't know?
They'll pay for all of it. So this case
But when you
was
say
35
all
grand.
of it, so whatever you spend doing it up.
100% of the cost on your first property. And then if you keep doing it on another property, I think it then drops like 50%.
So if you thought, do you know what, I'm going to go all out and have all the windows double glazed, say then had double glazing, and I'll have the solar panels and I'll have the insulation, and I might as well make it an A because they're paying.
Yeah.
Would they just pay regardless of, and I'm going to have top notch of absolutely everything because they're paying?
No,
so there is a limit.
So there is a limit. It depends on the property.
Okay.
So whoever's putting the application together, it's like Elite Energy in this case, would look at it and they go, this is what we would need to do in order to get it to an A or a B.
Yeah.
So we will do, and they'd put the application and say, this is our recommendation sort of thing. So you can't just go, oh yeah, I want triple glazing. In fact, triple glazing very rarely is allowed. Double glazing you can though.
No, but not triple glazing. Would you always recommend, like we did, using a company? Would it be very complicated to do yourself without using
I would recommend using a company because these guys have got the contracts with like Eon and so because it goes, I think it goes through I don't exactly understand all the ins and outs of it because you don't need to.
Yeah, because they do it all for you,
They sort
don't
it all
they?
out for you. In the same way that if I turn the light on, I don't fully understand how it all works. But I know if I turn the switch, it will do it. Same with this. I know if I find a property, there's an E, F, G. Apparently, it does work on a D, but it's just much less worthwhile. Also, it's a lot easier if it's a freehold property rather than a leasehold property. We did look at it one of our leasehold properties, and it ended up not being worth the hassle because obviously you don't own the building, you can't put the solar panels on the roof. There's stuff that you couldn't do, and it was like, it's probably not worth it. And that was the one in Market Drayton, and we didn't bother with that one.
And I think a question people are probably thinking then, if you use a company like Elite Energy, how do they get paid? Do you then have to pay them?
No. No,
So
so what they do is the government pay. Let's say the works actually cost Elite Energy 20 grand. They might get a 30 grand grant from the government, so they make the difference. So the government pays for it all.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because you can use the company. They do all the work for you. They do all the paperwork to get the grant, but you don't even have to cash out at all. It's not like you've got to pay that company and then the refurbs paid for. You literally don't have to pay a penny, do you?
No.
Which I think is very exciting because normally you have to pay some kind of like fee on things like this, but I think that's very exciting.
You literally don't. And what I'd probably recommend in reality, right, because you're unlikely to find a property that's, say, a G, which is the worst, and then it's perfect condition everywhere else, but you add this, it's going to be probably in a bit of a wreck state, I imagine. So what I'd probably recommend doing is when you're looking for BRRs, buying a G, buying a property that's terrible, got a really bad EPC rating, doing up the stuff that you can that doesn't affect the EPC.
Yeah.
So maybe putting in your new kitchens, your new bathrooms, giving it a paint, making it livable, but like still a G.
Yeah.
Right? You pay for that, then get the government, put a tenant in on benefits, then get the government grant to do the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then let's say your whole refurb was going to cost 70 grand. It might be like, it cost 70 grand overall. I paid 30.
Yes.
The government paid 40. 70 grand refurb on this property has now taken it to, well, I've also done some stats right here. So if you look rough areas, so if you're looking in, say, the southeast of England, for example, if you increase the EPC from a G to an A or a B, the average increase in value is 24%.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're adding 24% value just on the EPC alone.
Yeah.
The government are paying for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a BRR deal in itself.
It is, yeah.
You don't even need to do anything. You can literally buy a property, the government pay for the refurb, you refinance it, put all your money back out and some, because you don't even have to find great properties. You just have to find a G.
Yeah, and you
just pay what it's valued at today.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
There's definitely one place in the country where that doesn't work. This makes me laugh.
Yeah, so you go through the areas. It's quite funny, actually. So South East is the best. That's 24%.
London's pretty good, 18%.
18%. North East, 18%. North West, 18%.
Wales, 16.
16.9, so basically 17%. But then the Midlands, East Midlands, 10%. But the West Midlands, where we're from, is 2.9%.
Maybe that's why I don't like solar panels.
You're a Midlands girl.
I'm a Midlands girl.
Anna's like, it devalues the property. I do not like energy efficiency. I like beautiful looking old houses that are barns with wind blowing through. That's what
I've added that percentage there.
Yeah, you've brought the whole percentage down. So if it was me, if I was looking for BRRs right now, which we are, I'm looking for properties that have got a really bad EPC rating because I know I can add value without having to pay anything up front. You go to a company like Elite Energy, they sort it all out, they take care of it, you get the government to pay. There's something quite nice about the government paying me. I pay so much in taxes.
Yeah.
Something quite nice about the government paying me back.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys found that useful. Bit of an interesting topic. Definitely something you should be taking advantage of right now with the new EPC ratings and the way everything's going. These are the government grants. Take advantage of it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week.